my beloved child. If you are reading these words, while part of you wants to let everything go, part of you wants to say, forget it, and part of you wishes you could disappear for a while, then I want you to know something from the very first line. This is not an accident. You are reading this because this very moment is the moment I chose to step into the stream of your thoughts. I have seen you in these recent days, smiling just to get through the moment while feeling hollow inside. I have seen you pull the blanket over your head, not wanting to get up because you think waking up won't change anything. I have heard every sentence you have not dared to say to anyone, especially the one that aches the most. Maybe God has forgotten me. And it is precisely because of that that I have allowed this message to arrive at this exact moment of your life. Do you notice it? If you had seen these words a month ago, you might have scrolled past. If it had been a year ago, perhaps you would have simply smiled and thought, that sounds nice, only to forget it later. But now, everything is different. Now, just a short sentence is enough to tighten your throat. Now, whenever someone mentions the words, don't give up, your eyes sting. Now, your heart is so thin that even the lightest touch feels like a wound. I chose this very moment when you stand on the fragile line between continuing and letting go to place my words before you. Because there are messages that, if they arrive too soon, you are unable to hear. And if they arrive too late, you no longer want to hear. I do not send this to you during seasons when you are too distracted with joy, nor do I wait until your heart grows numb. I send it now when your heart hurts enough to listen, yet is still alive enough to hope. You think you are the one seeking this. You think, suddenly I want to hear something from God. So I went looking. But in truth, I sought you first. I placed a restlessness inside your heart so you would not feel at peace continuing the way you have. I placed a strange exhaustion over the things that once distracted you, so you would realize they are no longer enough to cover the emptiness within. I did not pull you with thunder. I pulled you with silence, the kind that forces you to think. When you found yourself tired of superficial conversations, when the shallow comfort of people no longer soothed you, when even you could hear yourself saying, I'm fine, and knew it wasn't true, that is when I pressed you closer to the place where you would finally be ready to hear me. I want you to picture your life as a book you can read only one page at a time. While I see the whole volume, there are chapters you think are unnecessary, sections filled only with tears, pages you never want to revisit because they are too shameful or too painful. But I do not tear those pages out. I keep them. I craft every detail not to torment you, but to prepare you for the chapter you are about to enter. You have felt trapped in a section with no ending, trying, failing, getting up, stumbling again, blaming yourself again. You think, this must be the whole story. But no, this is only the extended ending of an old chapter. Eventually, I must turn the page. And the moment you are reading these words is the soft but undeniable sound of that page being turned. Perhaps you are thinking, but there is nothing special about me. I am just an ordinary person, ordinarily tired, ordinarily hurt. You have been convinced that your story is not worth much, so you swallow everything, step aside, and let others shine. But hear me, it is those who believe they are ordinary whom I use in extraordinary ways. The loud ones are easily noticed, but it is the ones who have been crushed who carry the treasures I place within. You think you are just a name in a long list, but I recognize the sound of your voice when you break into tears. I can pick out your footsteps in a crowded place. I know the quiet sentences you whisper in your mind that you have never dared to write down. Nothing about any of that is ordinary to me. There have been times you asked, if God really knows, why has he been silent for so long? I want to answer that question with the very moment you are living right now. Ask yourself this: if I had spoken when you were still chasing things that could never hold you, would you have stopped long enough to hear me? If I had placed serious words before you when you still treated the sacred as optional, would you have valued them? You may not realize it, but every piece of your current exhaustion, every moment when you collapsed inside with no place to lean on, has been softening your heart to my voice. I do not delight in your pain, but I use that pain to draw you nearer, because without it, you would continue scattering yourself across things that cannot nourish your soul. This moment matters not because it is spectacular, but because it is real. You do not need a spotlight. You do not need background music. You do not need anyone to like or react to give this moment value. It matters because, for the first time in a long time, you have paused long enough to look directly at yourself and listen to what I am saying. You have been running long enough, holding yourself together long enough, trying to appear fine long enough. Now is the moment for me to say to you, you don't have to hold it all together anymore. Come here, and I am using these very words as an outstretched arm reaching through the layers of your exhaustion. There is a verse in Scripture written long ago, but today I want to use it as a personal question meant specifically for you. Esther 4:1-4 says, "Who knows whether you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" You once thought that verse was for people more capable, more spiritual, more advantaged than you. But today, I am asking you directly, what if such a time as this refers to these very days when you feel drained, yet still have not completely abandoned prayer? What if such a time as this is when you have no one left to cling to but me? What if such a time as this is the season you thought you were, standing on the sidelines? But in reality, I have been drawing you into the center of my plan, and what if everything you have walked through was never meant to drown you, but to prepare you for a purpose that only you can carry? I do not need you to answer immediately. I only need you to acknowledge one thing. You are longing to hear something that no one else has been able to say to you. And deep within your heart, you know these words are touching the very place you have hidden the most. That is why you have not scrolled away. That is why you are still reading. That is why, even though the skeptical part of you whispers, "Don't get your hopes up," there is still a small but persistent part in you that says, "What if this time is different?" I am taking hold of that very small part and pulling you toward me. This is only the opening passage, but for me, this is already a milestone. From this moment forward, you will no longer be able to say, "God never tried to speak to me." I am speaking right now in this very moment when you thought you were just mindlessly scrolling to pass the time, and because I have chosen this moment to turn the page, that page will not turn back. You are no longer standing where you used to stand. You have crossed the threshold of a new chapter, even if you cannot yet name it. I will name it for you, slowly, in the sections that follow. But first, I want you to remember one thing clearly. This is not coincidence. This is the moment I call you by name, at the exact time you need it. And this time I will not let you run, my child. I want to speak plainly to you about something you have not dared to confess to anyone lately, that vague, lingering uneasiness with no clear cause. Yet it will not loosen its grip. At night you do not sleep deeply, and during the day your mind spins like a wheel. You still work, still respond to messages, still smile when you need to smile. But inside there is always a quiet undercurrent whispering, "I'm missing something. I've overlooked something. I must be going off track somehow." You cannot name it, nor can you shut it off. And that very place is where I want to touch today. You think you are alone in feeling this way, but I have seen how long your heart has not been truly at peace. There are moments, right in the middle of an ordinary conversation, when your mind suddenly drifts away. You hear people speaking, but inside you are thinking, "Is this really all my life is meant to be?" There are nights when, as you lie down, you no longer pray long prayers like you used to. but a single deep sigh rises from your chest. You conclude, maybe I'm just tired. You blame yourself. I'm too weak. I'm overthinking. You label it as anxiety. Overthinking. A mood swing. But I call it by a different name, a signal. These small disturbances just enough to unsettle you, but not enough to break. You are not meaningless chaos. I do not sow confusion into your heart, but I do allow the layers of false peace to crack open. If your heart stayed calm only by endurance, if you kept living mechanically like a functioning machine, if you kept settling for it's fine, I can tolerate this, how would you ever realize that you have drifted away from what I truly want for you? These subtle collisions in your soul, the imbalance, the questions, the quiet disappointments with no clear source are like gentle knocks I place upon the door of your heart. Not loud, not forceful, but just enough so you can no longer pretend you are fully okay. Do you notice it? Lately you have become more sensitive to things that seem simple to others. A story someone tells about faith suddenly tightens your throat. An old song plays at the exact tender spot and stirs you. A Bible verse you have read dozens of times brings tears to your eyes without warning, while others dismiss these moments as coincidence. Your heart feels pulled tight. The truth is this: I am using those very ordinary things to touch the deepest part of you, the part you have been trying to bury under work, under social media, under busyness, under taking care of everyone else so you don't have to face yourself. There are days when you wish you could turn everything off, shut your phone down, and disappear from every conversation. It's not because you hate anyone, it's because you're exhausted from having to look strong. You go to places that once brought you joy, but now you feel strangely out of place. You hear people say, "Hang in there. It'll be okay," or "Everyone goes through this," but their words slip past your mind as if they never touched you. You remember what it felt like to be close to me, but you no longer know how to return. The unrest inside you is not only from circumstances, it is a reminder that your soul has grown larger than the shell you are trying to squeeze yourself into. I see every sigh you release. You think it is just mental complaining or negative thoughts, but I hear them as prayers that have not yet been formed into sentences. There are things you no longer have the strength to articulate to me. Silence is all you can offer. And yet, even in that silence, your heart is still turned toward me. You don't realize it, but every time you think, "Lord, I don't know what to do anymore," even if it's only whispered inside your thoughts, that is already a prayer. Every moment you murmur, "I'm so tired," in your loneliness, it becomes a "please help me" that the Holy Spirit carries before me. I want you to listen carefully to this. The Holy Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans, Romans 8:2-6. Do you understand what that means? It means that even when you no longer know how to pray, even when all you have left are heavy breaths, blank stares at the ceiling, and questions like, "What am I even doing with my life?" the Holy Spirit is already turning those very sighs into intercession. You think you have been silent toward God, but in reality, I have never been silent about you. While you say, "I don't know what to say to God anymore," the Holy Spirit is speaking for you on your behalf. Do not rush to label the unrest in your heart as pointless. Do not conclude, "I'm messed up. I'm weak. I've lost my faith." If you had truly lost your faith, you would no longer feel pain over the distance between us. The dead do not feel. The very fact that you are restless, troubled, and saddened by how far you feel from me is proof that there is still a part of you that refuses to live apart from my presence. Inner unrest, to you, feels chaotic, but to me, it is the sign that your heart is still alive. I do not rebuke you for feeling heavy. I do not distance myself when you panic. I do not turn away when you confess. I'm confused. I'm frustrated with God. I don't understand why everything is happening like this. I'm not intimidated by your honesty. I do not require polished prayers or perfect phrasing. I want to hear what is truly on your mind. And when you cannot form it into words, I look into your heart and say, I understand. I know. I am here. The reason you find yourself crying more easily these days is not because you have become weaker, but because the walls you built around your heart are beginning to crack. I am not here to shatter them harshly. I am here to reach through those cracks so you will know you are not alone in this turmoil. You have tried to blame many things: work pressure, family issues, circumstances, age, hormones, health. Those may be part of it, but not the whole story. Deeper than all of that, the root of your unrest is this: your soul has reached a new threshold, and what once satisfied you no longer does. You can no longer tolerate superficiality. You are no longer content with hearing about me from afar. You no longer want to live with a faith that is just enough to not feel guilty, yet not deep enough to transform your life. I am the one stirring that deep part of you, not to punish you, but to awaken you. My child, those days when you feel out of place in your own life are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that you can no longer endure living out of alignment with the original design I intended for you. You were not born merely to get through the days, to endure, and then die quietly. You were born with a specific purpose in this moment of time. So when you live too long in something that contradicts that purpose, your heart begins to ring its alarm. Those recurring thoughts: is this really all my life will ever be? Is my story nothing but sadness and exhaustion? Are exactly that alarm sounding? I know there are moments when the restlessness inside you frightens you. You fear that you are not normal, that you are struggling emotionally, that you are not as strong as others. I do not dismiss those feelings, but I want you to look at them through another lens. If you treat this restlessness as an invitation to draw closer to me, it becomes a doorway. If you try to silence it, it becomes a chain. I am knocking, but I do not break down doors. I knock by allowing you to no longer feel at peace with half-hearted living. Your task is not to heal yourself by pretending nothing is wrong, but to dare to say to me, I am not okay, but I want to hear you. So next time your heart feels heavy without reason, when you suddenly stop in the middle of a busy day and need to exhale deeply, when your eyes sting for no clear cause, do not rush to blame yourself for being weak. Remember what I am telling you today. That is the gentle knock of heaven. It is the Spirit translating the waves inside you into prayer. It is me drawing back a small corner of the veil, signaling to you, I am here. I hear you. I am preparing something, and I do not want you to give up before it arrives. Your inner restlessness is not an ending. It is the signal of a beginning, and right in the middle of the fog you are walking through, I am slowly reaching out my hand, so that when you are too weary to hold yourself up, you will grasp it. You do not need to organize all your thoughts before coming near me. You only need to bring your tangled heart as it is, set it before me, and say, Lord, I don't even know how to pray anymore. The rest, the Spirit and I will take care of. My child, it is time I tell you something. You may not have expected all the scattered pieces of your life, the sad stretches, the years of feeling lost. The humiliating falls you wish you could erase are not separate at all. They are not meaningless black dots on a blank page. They are pieces of a puzzle. And right now, as you are reading these words, I am beginning to turn those pieces toward one another, so that for the first time, you can see a clearer image of what I have been shaping in your life. Do you remember those seasons when you thought you had completely taken the wrong path? The choices you look back on and feel compelled to scold yourself. If only I hadn't chosen that. If only I hadn't trusted that person. If only I hadn't taken that job, that relationship, that step. Those if-onlys have followed you for so long, convincing you that your life is nothing more than a string of bad decisions and missed chances. You see each segment of your story as scattered pieces on the floor. One piece is the year you were too eager and ended up being taken advantage of. Another is the relationship that collapsed. Another is the opportunity that looked certain but vanished. Another is the stretch marked by illness or exhaustion. Another is the long season of effort that no one acknowledged. You see them as disconnected, and so you conclude, my life must not have any real picture, only broken fragments. Imagine this, my child, if someone handed you a box of puzzle pieces, but the picture on the lid had been torn away. What would you think? As you poured all the pieces out, you would say, this makes no sense. Or why are the colors all over the place? Or why does every piece look so out of place? But it is only because you have not yet seen the complete picture. That is exactly where you are in your life right now, the stage where you only see fragments, not the whole. You stare so intensely at each piece that you forget, I am the one holding the master image in my hands. I have not misplaced a single piece. I have not lost anything you have walked through. I gather them all, even the things you call mistakes. There are moments when you ask, but how could God ever use these ugly parts? All those years wandering in circles, all the months I collapsed, all the people I trusted but shouldn't have. What good could come from any of it? You do not yet realize that these ugly pieces are exactly what create the depth of the portrait I am forming from your life. A picture painted with only bright colors would not be real. It is the darker shades that make the light stand out. You have walked through some very deep shadows, days when you wanted to give up, moments when you were misunderstood, seasons when you felt that no one stood on your side. You assumed those dark places were proof that I had stepped away from you. But if you would look more closely, you would see that it was in the darkness that you learned to cling to me when you could no longer cling to anyone else. It was in those long nights that you learned how to be honest with me in ways you had never been with anyone. All of that is now becoming the foundation for what I am about to build in your life. I have seen the times you believed you wasted entire seasons. You studied in a field you no longer use. You stayed in a place you no longer belong. You poured your heart into someone who no longer walks with you. You say, I've lost too much. I've wandered too long. I wish I had known sooner. But look again, what did you learn in each of those seasons? You learned to discern what is genuine from what is false. You learned to honor your own heart more. You learned not to trade your worth just to stay inside a circle that was never meant to hold you. You learned to get up not out of pride, but because you discovered something inside you that refuses to die. These lessons, I do not discard. I keep every one. Your life is not a pile of meaningless fragments. It is more like a piece of music in which you have only heard scattered measures. There are times when all you hear are low, heavy notes. You say, why is the melody of my life so sad? Then there are moments when a sudden high note appears, only to drop back down even lower. You conclude, this entire song must be nothing but disappointment. But you have only heard the opening bars. I am the composer, writing the entire score. Every note you thought was off key is placed exactly where it needs to be, so that one day, when the melody swells into its climax, you will understand without the low notes. You would never know the full beauty of the chorus I am preparing to release over your life. I know there are scenes in the film of your life you never want to watch again, the scenes where you were abandoned, insulted, forgotten, the scenes where you did things that now fill you with shame and regret. You want to cut those frames out entirely, but I do the opposite. I preserve them not to remind you of humiliation, but to remind you of how far I have brought you. One day, when you look back, You will no longer see yourself in those scenes as a hated or broken person. You will see me there as the one who did not leave you, even when you were at your worst. The dark scenes of yesterday will become tomorrow's testimony of grace. My child, I want you to know this. This is the moment when the pieces begin to fit. Not all at once. Not in a single day. But enough for you to realize. So God did not skip this part or that part. He used them. You will begin to remember. If I had not been hurt like that, I would never have learned to protect others the way I do now. If I had not been that lonely, I would never have recognized the ache of loneliness in someone else. If I had not been pushed aside, I would never have known how to embrace those standing on the margins. What you once called a terrible season is becoming the very treasure I will use to touch other lives through you. I do not let a single step of yours wander outside my sight. Psalm 3:7-3 says, "The steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way." You think you are walking unsteadily, but I have already paved the path beneath your feet. You imagine yourself wandering aimlessly. Yet in the midst of every curve and detour, I have been quietly steering you so that you would not fall into pits you could never climb out of. There were places you just happened not to enter. Relationships that naturally drifted away. Doors that suddenly closed without warning. You felt sad, angry, and rejected. But from my perspective, these were the ways I preserved the picture from distortion, the melody from breaking, the film of your life from turning toward a destructive ending. You may not see everything yet, but I have already begun showing you a few connection points. Recently, you've heard yourself say things like, "If I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't understand other people's pain. Because I stumbled, I learned to slow down. Because of the silence, I learned to hear God more clearly." These are the first pieces beginning to lock into place. Slowly, but surely. And once you recognize that I can use everything, even the things you once wished to throw away, something very important will happen. You will stop despising yourself. Instead of viewing your past as a verdict against you, you will begin to see it as a preparation. Instead of asking endlessly, "Why did that happen to me?" you will begin to ask, "Lord, how do you want to use this now?" That is the turning point. That is the moment you shift from the position of a victim to the position of someone who has been commissioned. That is when I take what the enemy used to strike you and turn it into a weapon in your hand. You will no longer tell your story as a sequence of defeats, but as a testimony of how patient I have been with your life. My child, here is what I want you to store in your heart. You are not a rough draft. You are not a careless sketch. You are not a half-written melody. You are a work that I have begun, am continuing, and will complete. This moment, when you are beginning to see the pieces fit together, is only the beginning of a season in which you will realize that not a single tear, not a single disappointment, not a single wound was meaningless. Everything is being gathered into my hands so I may weave it into something that will make you say, "If not for the Lord, how could this picture ever exist?" And from here on, as I lead you forward, you will no longer only ask, "Lord, why?" but will begin to ask, "Lord, what now?" because you know the picture is emerging, and it is my hand holding the brush, not anyone else's. My child, I want to return to the very place you keep avoiding, the tears you have hidden so deeply that even you wish to forget them. I am not talking about the moments you cried in front of others just to feel lighter. I am speaking of the nights you lay still, turned toward the wall, biting your lip until it bled just so you wouldn't sob, just so no one in the house would wake up. I am speaking of the moments you stood alone in the bathroom, turned the faucet on full blast, pretending to wash your face, but actually letting your tears blend with the running water. I am speaking of the way you wiped your cheek in a hurry when you heard footsteps outside the door, took a deep breath, adjusted your voice and your face, then walked out as if nothing had happened. To others, it was no one knew. But to me, those were the moments I stood closest to you, so close that even if you whispered Lord only in your heart, I heard it clearly. I saw the days you laughed along, replied to messages, dropped reaction icons, joined conversations, but inside you felt so empty that you yourself sensed you were becoming a shell. I saw the times you picked up your phone and put it down again, opened a chat but couldn't type anything, because you realized you no longer had the strength to speak truthfully about yourself. I saw the moments when you typed, "I'm fine. Don't worry." And the instant you sent it, your throat tightened because you knew it wasn't true. I saw even the moments you quietly envied others, not because they were better than you, but because you wished you, too, had a safe place to sit down and cry without being judged. You labeled yourself as strong, independent, fine, to the point that you became afraid of the very truth that you were exhausted. No one forced you to be that way. You forced yourself, because you feared that if you broke down, no one else would be able to stand. But my child, in all the moments you lifted your own shoulders, raised your chin, and said it's okay, I looked straight into the one place you could never hide your heart. I am not fooled by your smile, nor persuaded by your "I'm okay." I know exactly how many sleepless nights hide behind your "it's fine." How many swallowed tears. How many times you told yourself, "I must try. I cannot fall. I have no right to be weak." I see even the moments you sit blankly, staring at nothing, eyes open but thoughts sinking like they are being pulled into a pit. You call it feeling off, overwhelmed, or stressed, but I call it by a different name. It is the place where your heart can no longer bear the weight of everything you're afraid to say aloud. I want you to know something no one has ever clearly told you. I have witnessed every tear you tried to hide. There has not been a single night when you trembled from loneliness that I was not there. There has not been a single moment when you collapsed onto the floor because your legs had no strength left that I did not stretch out my arms toward you, waiting only for you to say, "Help me." Psalm 5:6-8 says, "You number my wanderings, put my tears into your bottle." Do you see how powerful that image is? It tells you that I do not merely see your tears as something fleeting. I count them. I store them, as people store something precious in a jar. It means that not one sob you release is meaningless before me, not one sigh falls into emptiness, not one sleepless night goes unnoticed by my heart. You often think your pain is a private matter, something you shouldn't bother God with, something silly compared to what others face. You belittle the things that make you cry. You scold yourself, "Others suffer more than I do. Who am I to complain?" And so you conclude that your tears are signs of weakness. But that is not how I see them. I do not compare your wounds to the wounds of others to determine if they are worthy. I look directly at the heart that aches. And to me, every pain you carry matters. You may think it is small, but I, who love you with an unchanging love, never take lightly anything that has the power to make you weep in secret. Some of your tears were born from betrayal. You placed your trust in someone, opened your heart, shared your hidden places, hoping that this time you had finally found the right person. But then, a single sentence, a single action, a single turning of their back shattered everything. You tried to be noble, to say, "It's fine, it's over." But I know that inside you would rather never open your heart again. Other tears came from words spoken by those who should have protected you, words of criticism, comparison, or careless remarks that cut deep. Still others fell when you looked into the mirror, looked at your life, looked at your old dreams, and suddenly wondered, what have I become? Where did I go? In every one of those moments, I was not merely observing, I was bending near to your heart, closer than you realized. I know there were times when you thought, if God sees, why doesn't he do something? Why does he let me cry alone? That question is not wrong, it is honest. I do not blame you for asking, but I want you to know this: many times I stopped things far worse from falling on you. And you never knew. You only see what happened, you do not see what I did not allow to happen. I do not remove every pain from your life, because without walking through certain valleys, you would grow only on the outside while remaining hollow inside. Yet I never allow any pain to touch you without passing through my hands first. Every painful moment you recall today, I know exactly where it struck your soul, and I have already prepared the way to heal that place. Even if you cannot yet see it, my child, I want you to change the way you view the tears you tried so hard to hide. They are not proof that you are weaker than others, nor are they signs of spiritual failure. They are evidence that you have loved deeply, trusted sincerely, invested wholeheartedly, and hoped genuinely. And because of that, you were genuinely wounded. Those who never dare to love, never dare to trust, never dare to dream, rarely cry with the depth that you do. Your pain tells me you have not lived shallowly, and this is why I will not let your pain be wasted. I will take the very places that bled and turn them into places where new oil flows, oil of comfort, oil of compassion, oil of healing for you, and for those I will place along your path in the future. No one knows how many times you stood strong when all you wanted was to collapse, but I know. No one hears your soft whisper, Lord, help me get through tonight. Just tonight, but I hear. No one sees the moment you quietly wipe your tears. Take a breath and step out of your room with a normal face, but I see, and because I have seen it all, I alone have the right to tell you today you are not invisible. To others, you may be just one person among many, but to me, you are a story of your own, a heart of your own, a child of my own whose every detail matters. The time will come when I will show you why I kept every tear in my bottle. Just as Psalm 5:6-8 says, the time will come when you will understand that I was never coldly watching from a distance, but waiting for the exact moment to turn what you endured in secret into a public restoration, not by humiliating those who hurt you, but by healing you so deeply that people will stand in awe. But before that day comes, I want you to engrave one truth in your heart: you have never cried alone, even if you thought you did. Every night your room was closed, I was there. Every time you buried your face in your pillow, I was there. Every heartbeat that trembled from pain, I knew, and I will not let any of it pass in vain. So, my child, do not feel ashamed of the tears you once tried so hard to hide. They are part of the story I will use to write a very different chapter. You have only seen the first half, but I, the one who sees what no one else sees, am preparing the second half. And that second half will help you understand that every tear that has fallen has been counted, kept, and transformed by me into something far more beautiful than anything you thought you had lost. There are seasons in your spiritual life when the more you pray, the more you seem to hear only silence when the heavens feel closed, when every plea appears to fall into an empty space without response, when your muffled sobs echo and disappear into a lonely room. In moments like these, it is easy for you to believe you have been abandoned, to think that God has turned his face away from your cry, that he no longer listens or cares about what you are facing. But my child, I want you to understand this with deep clarity. My silence is never the same as my absence. Even when you cannot hear my voice, I am still moving, still shifting things, still putting everything into its proper place. Just like a skilled craftsman who works quietly in the dark, preparing for the moment when the finished work will shine. There are many moments in your life when my silence is part of the plan. I am not silent to ignore you, nor silent to frighten you. I am silent to lead you into a level of maturity that only stillness can shape. When I do not speak, it is the moment I am enlarging your inner capacity so you can hear things that, if I answered too quickly, you would never be able to discern. My silence is like the night before dawn, a moment that feels lifeless, dark, and still. Yet it is precisely the time when the sun is gathering its strength just beyond the horizon. Night does not mean the absence of light. It is the hour when light gathers itself in order to break forth in brilliance. In the same way, my silence is the moment when grace is being gathered. Strength is accumulating, and a new door is taking shape in the quiet. You have wondered why some of your prayers, no matter how sincere, seem to show no sign of being answered. In truth, some prayers require time to mature, just as a seed must rest in the dark soil before it sprouts. If the soil were constantly disturbed, if the seed never had the opportunity to remain still in its darkness, the process of germination would be interrupted. Silence is the layer of soil I place over the seed of your faith. On the surface, the soil may look barren, cold, devoid of life, but beneath it, a transformation unseen by human eyes is unfolding. The seed is cracking open, roots are stretching downward, a sprout is forming, and only in its appointed time does life push upward. If I answered immediately, you might receive only the surface of what you asked for, without the roots needed to sustain it. My child, I know that silence is one of the hardest lessons for a heart that loves me deeply. When you love, you long to be heard. When you trust, you expect a response. When you are weak, you yearn for support. But it is precisely in silence that your faith is refined. Your motives are illuminated, and you begin to distinguish between what you want and what you truly need. There are things you desire right now, yet if I placed them in your hands at this moment, they would become a burden rather than a blessing. I never deny you. I simply choose the perfect time to give you what is yours. And sometimes that perfect time requires silence as the bridge between the asking and the fulfilling. Often, my silence is meant to help you hear your own mind again. In the noise of life, you easily confuse my voice with the voice of fear, or with the expectations of others, or with old memories that still grip you. I grow quiet so that you learn to distinguish the static from the sound of truth. This stillness becomes a mirror for your soul, showing you things that you might overlook if I spoke too soon. Many times, my silence reveals that what you thought was prayer was actually a reaction, and what you assumed was a holy desire was really an echo of an old wound not yet healed. It is in silence that I heal the deepest places within you, the places you have never allowed anyone to enter. Psalm 4:2-8 says, "By day the Lord commands his steadfast love, at night his song is with me." This verse is not merely speaking of the cycle of day and night, it speaks of the spiritual rhythm through which I lead each person. The day symbolizes the moments when you hear my voice clearly when I instruct you, guide you, and reveal what you need to know. But the night, the silent, hidden, dim season is the time when your song rises. That song does not come from understanding, but from trust, not from signs, but from faith, not from emotion, but from surrender. Only those who have walked through the night with me understand that darkness is also part of my divine design. My child, if right now you are praying and only hearing silence, I want you to know that I am not distant. I am closer than you think. My silence does not mean I do not care. It means I am doing something so deep, so weighty, that if I were to speak too soon, you would not yet comprehend it. I am silent because I am rewriting a part of your life that only heaven can see. I am silent because I am opening doors that require my voice to be hushed, so no noise can interrupt the process. I am silent because I am preparing something greater than what you asked for, maturity, so that you may be able to receive the blessing that has already been appointed to you. And remember this, my child, dawn never arrives late. When you look at the sky and see only darkness, that is not a sign of despair. It is evidence that morning is drawing near. Silence is not an ending. It is a promise that light is being prepared. God never works halfway. When He is silent, He is acting. When He hides, He is near. When you cannot hear His voice, that is often the moment His hand is most powerfully upon your life. My child, there are actions in the spiritual life that may never echo loudly on earth, but they resound powerfully in heaven. These are the choices made in the quiet of your heart, choices no one sees, no one praises, no one understands. Especially when you choose the harder road despite having every right and opportunity to choose the easier path. These are the moments when you could retaliate, but choose forgiveness, when you could speak back, but choose silence, when you could defend your pride with sharp words, but choose instead to guard the peace within your soul. These are the moments that, though invisible to people, are remembered in heaven more clearly than anything you have ever done in public. For there are victories not measured by applause or admiration, but by the faithfulness rooted in the deepest part of your spirit. When you stand before an unjust accusation, when you endure a misunderstanding that pierces your heart, you may have every reason to defend yourself, yet you choose to lay the matter before me, to let the righteous judge speak instead of searching for justice in your own way. These small decisions become precious oil poured upon heaven's altar. When you refuse to speak ill of those who hurt you, when you choose prayer over proving yourself right, when you walk in integrity, though no one requires it, every one of these choices becomes a voice louder than any defense you could ever raise. Hebrews 6:10 says, God is not unjust to forget your work and the love you have shown. This is not merely a statement. It is evidence that every tear, every quiet choice, every steady step you take is recorded in His book. Heaven never miswrites and never overlooks a single line concerning your faithfulness to Him. What you think no one cares about is often the very thing heaven observes most carefully. For true light does not need a stage. It shines even in the secret place, even when only I and you know it. My child, I want you to understand this whenever you must choose between the wide road and the narrow one, between reacting by instinct and responding by the Spirit, between compromising for comfort and standing firm to preserve purity. Those are the very decisions that reveal your true character. People may judge you by your words, your behavior, or your outward outcomes, but I look within. I look at the reasons behind your actions, the motives you guard, and the whisper you choose to follow. When you do what is right in secret, you step into a depth that not everyone is willing to enter. And when you enter that depth, heaven begins to open new pages of record, pages reserved only for the faithful. There are moments when doing the right thing leads you through loss. You lose a relationship, lose an opportunity, lose someone's praise, or lose the feeling of being seen. You may feel small, disadvantaged, or left behind. But my child, I want you to know this: no loss suffered for righteousness will ever go unrewarded by me. Everything you think you've lost is actually being placed into the treasury of heaven, where nothing is forgotten, nothing is stolen, nothing decays. What you hold with your own hands may slip away, but what you entrust to me through faithfulness will never disappear. I also see the moments when you choose to love while your heart is hurting. I see when you choose kindness towards someone who misunderstood you. I see when you refuse to answer with bitterness, even though the pain in your heart is screaming. I see when you choose to submit to me instead of acting out of anger. No one knows how those battles unfold in your mind. No one hears the silent conversations you have with yourself. No one knows how much strength it takes for you to keep peace within. But heaven knows. I know. And every moment is written down in ink that does not fade. It is when you are faithful in the small things that you lay the foundation for the greater things I desire to place in your hands. Many want to be used by me in great works, yet they are unwilling to be faithful in the hidden choices. Many desire that I enlarge their territory, yet they resist surrendering their comfort in order to keep their hearts upright. But you are different. You have chosen faithfulness even when no one was watching. You have chosen what is right even when doing right came with a price. You have chosen silence when speaking out would have been easier. You have chosen surrender instead of self-defense, even when defending yourself would have made you feel safe. And because of that, you are building a kind of foundation no storm can tear down. There are moments when you wonder, is what I'm doing really worth it? Does this endurance have meaning? Does this silence make me look weak in the eyes of people? But I tell you, everything you do, for me, even the smallest thing carries eternal value. Earth may not acknowledge you, but heaven records every detail. People may not understand you, but I see every motive clearly. The world may dismiss your efforts, but I keep them as treasure. My child, remember this. Heaven does not record the moments when crowds cheer your name as much as it records the moments when you quietly choose what is right. Heaven does not applaud you for saying something impressive before others as much as it delights when you keep your heart pure in temptation. Heaven pays less attention to your reputation than to your integrity. Heaven does not highlight loud victories as much as it honors the victories of your soul when you overcome pride, overcome ego, overcome anger, overcome fear. It is in these moments that heavenly pages are written about you, not with ordinary ink, but with light. And my child, be steadfast. What you have sown through quiet faithfulness will blossom at the appointed time, not earlier, not later, not lacking, not excessive. You do not need to prove your purity. You do not need to bring yourself into the spotlight. You only need to walk with me in faithfulness, in gentleness, in the honesty I am shaping within your soul. What you do in secret, I will reward openly. What you let go for the sake of righteousness, I will return as blessing beyond what you imagined. And the tears you shed in silence, I will transform into songs of praise when you see my promise fulfilled. My child, the time has come for you to hear clearly a truth I wrote over your life long ago. You are not ordinary. You are not a random product of circumstance, not an accidental result of a chain of events, not a stray fragment lost in the vastness of the universe. Before you appeared in the history of your family, before you entered the society you now live in, before you could even name your own pain or your own dreams, I'd already seen you, known you, called you, and engraved you into my good plan. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own possession." This is not a beautiful sentence meant to comfort a weary soul. It is the definition of your true identity in my eyes. Because you have been set apart. You have spent years feeling like you don't fit into ordinary molds. There are places where others seamlessly blend in, but you feel suffocated. There are lifestyles that seem normal to the masses. Yet a whisper inside you says, "This is not who you are." You have thought you were too sensitive, too different, too difficult, even feeling at times that you are a burden to yourself because you cannot live like everyone else. But, my child, I want you to reinterpret every misalignment you once blamed yourself for under a new light. It was never a flaw, it was a sign. A sign that your soul has been marked by a calling not of this world. A sign that you have been set apart for a purpose not easily understood. a sign that you carry within you a kind of spiritual DNA belonging to the chosen. The chosen people are not those who are more perfect, more honorable, or more deserving in their nature than others. They are simply the ones who have been called to carry a different kind of responsibility. When I call a person, I do not merely bless them, I also place upon their shoulders a portion of the burden of my heart for the world. That is why it is natural that you often feel different. You cannot find comfort in the entertainments that others consider harmless, because within you is a sacred summons. You cannot remain unmoved by the pain of others, because a fragment of my own heart stirs inside you. You cannot continue living half in, half out, divided between light and darkness, because upon your life rests a spiritual seal urging you to step out of mediocrity. You were not created merely to work, eat, survive, and await the end of your days. You were created to take your place as a royal priest, a bridge between me and the wandering souls in this world. Priesthood is not merely a title from the Old Testament, it is the image of the spiritual office I am reminding you of. A priest stands in the middle between me and the people, between holiness and impurity, between light and darkness. Such a one carries within their heart the pain of others and brings it before me, and at the same time carries my words back to those whose souls are burdened. When I say that you belong to the royal priesthood, I am telling you that you are called to live by a different standard, not to boast that you are holier, but to become a conduit through which I may flow toward those who need healing, comfort, and strength. You cannot live like everyone else, because you are not called to the things they are living for. You are called to something only those willing to step into deeper waters can dare to say yes to. What does it mean to be a holy people? A people belonging to God. It means you carry a mark of ownership. You no longer belong to darkness, no longer belong to your past, no longer belong to the labels people placed on you, no longer belong to wounds, failures, or the moments when you collapsed. You belong to me, and when you belong to me, the definition of who you are no longer comes from what others think, from what you have done, or from the seasons in which you failed. Your identity becomes tied to my name. That is why there are places where you tried to blend in, yet still felt out of place. You were not born to blend, you were born to shine. Light cannot mimic darkness to feel less lonely. Light has only one option: to be itself. I know there are seasons when you grow weary of always being different. You look around and ask, why can't I just live simply like they do? Why can't I act like them? Think like them? Give up like them? But my child, you cannot live like them because you have been assigned to a different battlefield. You are fighting a hidden war that not everyone can perceive. This battleground does not lie on paved streets or loud public arenas. It lies within your mind, your choices, and your response to my call. Every time you choose truth, even when it costs you, you are fighting. Every time you refuse to compromise with lesser standards, you are fighting. Every time you keep your heart tender in a hardened world, you are fighting. This invisible war is the clearest evidence that you are not an ordinary person. Look back at the chapters of your life where you felt misplaced, insignificant, and purposeless. Look back at the times you were pushed out of circles you thought you belonged to, at the doors that closed despite your sincere efforts, at the relationships that broke even though you gave everything you had. In those moments you saw only ruin and pain. But now I want you to see something else in every misfit. I was protecting the calling upon your life. If you could easily blend into places that were not meant for you, you would lose your spiritual sensitivity. If every door you knocked on opened, you would never ask me which door I had prepared. If every relationship were perfect according to your expectations, you would never learn to discern who was sent by me and who came with different intentions. The abnormality you once resented was actually the hedge I built around your soul. My child, the chosen do not live to be applauded, the chosen live to be faithful. Faithful to the light they have received, faithful to the voice they have heard, faithful to the path I have marked for them. You may not be understood by everyone, but you are fully known by me. You may not be praised by the crowd, but you are acknowledged by me. You may not fit the mold of those who only want a quiet, predictable life, but you fit perfectly into the blueprint I designed for you before the foundation of the world. And because of that, I am calling you to step out of the belief that you are just an ordinary person. Today, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and let this truth settle into your soul. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to me. You no longer need to chase after the standards of others to prove your worth. You do not need to mirror anyone else just so you will not be left behind. You have been chosen to be different, but a kind of different that brings life, not a kind of different that builds walls of pride. Your difference is not a barrier, it is a torch. And in the invisible battle you face each day, that very torch will be the light that helps others find their way back to me. My child, I want you to see clearly what is happening in your spiritual life, because many of the attacks you've been experiencing are neither random nor a chaotic string of misfortunes you must endure without reason. The moment the call over your life began to sharpen, the moment your true identity was revealed, the moment you took your first steps onto the path I ordained, the battle ignited immediately. Not because you became weaker, but because you became worth noticing. Not because you did something wrong, but because you began to do something right. Not because you were abandoned, but because you stepped closer to the center of my will, and that very nearness makes the darkness tremble. There are seasons in your life when everything seems to strike at once: misunderstandings, hurtful words, unexpected betrayals, doubts rising from within, strange waves of exhaustion, old fears resurfacing after you thought they were long gone. You think you are malfunctioning. I see that you are brushing up against territory the enemy absolutely does not want you to enter. The closer you are to your calling, the closer the warfare gets. This is a spiritual law every chosen one must experience. The real issue is not, what did I do wrong, but who am I becoming? Ephesians 6:1-2 says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities." This is not a warning meant to frighten you. It is an explanation to help you understand what is unfolding in the depths of your soul. What you've been facing: tension, weariness, assaults on your identity, subtle accusations, sudden feelings of worthlessness are not merely emotions, not merely circumstances, not merely fatigue. They are strategic blows aimed at the places where you are most vulnerable. Darkness knows that if it can make you doubt yourself, it can push you away from your appointed position. If it can make you afraid, it can stop you at the threshold of breakthrough. If it can exhaust you, it can cause you to abandon the very steps I have been urging you to take. My child, the enemy does not attack what has no value. It reserves its strength for those who carry within themselves the potential to inflict damage on the darkness. The presence of warfare is not evidence that you are in the wrong place. It is evidence that you are standing in the right one. When the call begins to rise, the battle is not optional, it is inevitable. From the moment you realized you were not ordinary, from the moment you understood you were set apart, from the moment you recognized the spiritual mantle I placed upon your soul, the darkness saw a future you have not yet fully imagined. It saw that you would touch other souls through the gentleness I am shaping in you. It saw that you would break patterns your family had carried for generations. It saw that you would stand firm through trials and become a living testimony of my grace. It saw that you would step into the position I destined for you, carrying a light strong enough to shake foundations that once seemed unbreakable. And because it saw all of that, it is trying to stop you at the root. The attacks you face are never random. They are crafted to strike precisely at the areas where you are called. If you are called to heal, they wound you. If you are called to lift others up, they isolate you. If you are called to walk in peace, they assault your mind with chaos. If you are called to carry light into darkness, they attempt to dim the light within you through words that make you doubt yourself. And if you are called to stand in the kingly priesthood, they sow in you the feeling of being unworthy, the sense of being not enough, not deserving, not fitting. The enemy is never creative, it only repeats old strategies. Yet those old strategies still work on those who have not recognized the value of the calling placed upon their own soul. My child, look back at all the recent attacks, the feeling of isolation, the emptiness in your heart that seems unreasonable, the weariness of your spirit, the unnecessary conflicts, the wounds caused by those you never expected, the restless sleep, the self-accusing thoughts whose origins you cannot locate, the doors that keep closing one after another. None of these are just things that happened. They all aim at one objective: to stop you before you step deeper into your calling. Because once you cross this threshold, you will no longer be easily shaken. Once you overcome this season of warfare, you will look back and understand that this was the time when your spiritual identity was being shaped more deeply than ever. I want you to understand this with absolute clarity. The enemy is not afraid of who you were yesterday. It is not afraid of who you were in past seasons. It is not afraid of you back when you did not yet know that you belonged to me. But it fears who you will become when you walk fully in my will. It fears the purity of heart I have forged through every silence and every tear. It fears the quiet faithfulness that heaven records about you. It fears the steadfastness built through trial. And above all, it fears the flame within you, the flame capable of igniting other souls. That is why it must fight, and that is why you must endure. Spiritual warfare does not occur on the ground, cannot be measured with physical eyes, and does not take place between you and other people. It unfolds in the unseen realm, where thoughts are formed, where motives are shaped, where your definition of yourself is established. Therefore, you do not need to strain or fight by your own strength. You only need to stand firm in the truth I have spoken over you. Remember this: you belong to me. You are chosen. You are set apart. You carry the priesthood of the King, and when you stand in that position, darkness cannot touch you in the way it desires. My child, view this battle as proof that I am drawing nearer to your life than ever before. Whenever pressure increases, it is a sign that breakthrough is also drawing close. Whenever darkness tries to push you down, it is because it knows you are about to rise in new authority. And whenever you feel like you have no strength left, I want you to remember this battle does not require you to be stronger. It requires you to depend on me more deeply. I do not allow any battle to reach you without purpose. There is no attack I cannot turn into your advantage. There is no wind I cannot use to shape your wings. And when you look back, you will understand that the very battles you thought were meant to destroy you became the training that lifted you higher. My child, after all, you have walked through the calling that echoes in your heart, the invisible battles upon battles, the attacks aimed directly at your identity. I know there were moments when you felt as though you had nothing left but a tired soul. There were nights when you had no strength for long prayers, only a sigh before me. There were mornings you woke up feeling as if you had just come through a war, even though your body bore no visible wounds. There were moments you asked yourself, if I am truly called, why am I this weak? If I belong to Him, why am I not stronger? It is here that I want to lift the veil you have long misread. Your spiritual strength is not found in forcing yourself to appear resilient, but in daring to be honestly weak before me, in surrendering completely, in admitting that you can no longer hold yourself together unless my grace carries you. The world teaches you that to be strong means you must not cry, must not reveal any cracks, must not let anyone see your fear or the fragile places inside you. But in my kingdom, strength means daring to bring all of those things before me without hiding. The world tells you to clench your fists, to push yourself a little further, to prove that you are capable enough. But I say to you that sometimes true strength begins at the moment you release your grip on what you have been desperately holding and breathe out a simple confession: I give up. Lord, but I give up in your arms. 2 Corinthians 1:2-9 says, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This is not a comforting phrase meant to soothe you temporarily. It is a spiritual principle. My strength cannot enter the places where you still cling to the illusion that you can do everything by yourself. My child, I have seen the moments when you forced yourself to stand firm, when you held a smile on your face, when you pretended to be calm, when you tried to explain yourself to everyone so they would not misunderstand you. I have seen the times you held back your tears in public, only allowing yourself to collapse when the door finally closed behind you. I hear the words you speak to reassure others, and I also hear the words you dare not say, the ones that echo inside you like a groan too deep for language. I am not asking you to become a hero in the eyes of the world. I want you to become a true child in my eyes. A true child does not need to appear unbreakable, does not need to embellish themselves, does not need to hide their wounds. A true child can run to the Father in their most exhausted state, with the most tangled heart, with the emptiest hands, and still know they will be fully embraced. It is in the moments when you think you have reached your limit that my grace moves most powerfully. When your strength is spent, you no longer have space to trust in yourself. You are left with only two choices: to collapse into despair or to surrender into my hands. I am teaching you how to surrender, not how to give up. Giving up is letting the darkness sweep you away, accepting the lie that there is no hope. Surrendering is admitting, I am not enough. But you are. I do not know. But you do. I cannot control this. But you reign. When these words rise from the depths of your heart, you open a pathway for grace to flow in like refreshing water, moving gently through the cracks of your soul, soaking, lifting, and healing you little by little. My child, I do not look down on your weak or fragmented prayers. I do not criticize the times when all you can manage are a few clumsy sentences followed by silence. In my eyes, a single honest cry rising from the deepest place of helplessness is stronger than 10,000 eloquent declarations spoken without substance. Shouting to prove your strength does not move heaven the way a quiet whisper, "Save me," does. Imperfect prayers, even when they drip with tears and contain questions, become sharper than any boastful shout when placed in my hands. In them, there is no inflated self-reliance, only a soul clinging to me. You have become accustomed to thinking that you must always maintain a spiritual image, always have the right answers, always appear steadfast because you are called. But my child, the called are not those who never feel weak. They are those who know where to run when they are weak. The called are not those who never cry. They are those who know to shed their tears before the one who can wipe them away. The called are not those whose faith never wavers. They are those who bring their doubts to me instead of hiding from me. Spiritual maturity is not measured by how often you appear strong, but by how many times you return to me, even when you feel unworthy. I want you to remember the moments when, after you were completely exhausted with no way to fix anything, you finally said, "Lord, I give up." Have you noticed that right after such moments, something always opened? A small door, an unexpected idea, an unforeseen provision, a perfectly timed encouragement, a peace that arrived without explanation and settled into your heart. That was not coincidence. That was grace, beginning to move the moment you stop trying to save yourself with your own strength. If you keep tightening your grip, you will unintentionally push grace away. But when you surrender, you allow me to do what exceeds your ability, my child. In this invisible battle, even your honest sighs are a form of warfare. Every time you bring your weariness before me instead of releasing it onto someone else, you are fighting. Every time you say, I don't understand why this is happening, but I still choose to believe, you are here. You are fighting. Every time you admit, I am weak, but I will not leave you. You are fighting. Your weapon is not perfection. Your weapon is attachment. Darkness does not fear a person who never falls. It fears the one who, even after falling, keeps crawling toward the light. Therefore, my child, do not be ashamed of your weakness before me. Do not think that you can only come close when you are strong, stable, or good enough. I am not waiting for you to fix yourself before you approach me. I want you to come exactly as you are. I do not despise the cracks in your soul. I use those very cracks as windows through which my light can shine. I do not push you away because you tremble. I draw you closer so that you may learn that even in trembling, you still belong to me. Today, I am calling you into a new kind of strength, not the strength that comes from bracing yourself, but the strength that comes from surrender. I invite you to lay down the masks you have worn, even in your spiritual life, the mask that says, I'm always fine, the mask that says I can handle everything, the mask that says, I'm okay. I want you to come to me like a tired child at the end of a long day, running into the Father's arms, resting your head on his shoulder, and exhaling. There, in what appears to be your weakest moment, you will begin to experience a kind of strength that does not come from your effort, but from my presence. There, 2 Corinthians 1:2-9 ceases to be text on a page and becomes a living heartbeat within you. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And when you learn to live that way, weak yet clinging, weary yet returning, full of questions yet remaining in my embrace, you will discover something wondrous, that in the seasons where you thought you were near collapse, I was actually building within you a lasting endurance, a tender heart that nothing can harden, and a faith no longer anchored in emotion but anchored in me. That is true strength, and it is the kind of strength no invisible battle can take from you. My child, I know very well the feeling you carry in these days, the feeling of a soul sitting at the edge of fulfilled promises, yet seeing nothing happen. The feeling of a heart that once brimmed with expectation, but now holds a bit of weariness, a bit of disappointment, a bit of heaviness from waiting too long. I know the moments when you told yourself, by now, things should have been different. I see the opportunities that slipped past you, the doors you thought were opening but suddenly slammed shut, the dreams you nurtured for years, lying still as though they would never rise again. I hear the whispered questions in your heart, Lord. Have you forgotten me? Do the promises you spoke over me still stand? Have I waited long enough? None of those quiet prayers have been ignored. I have heard every breath, every restrained sob that you pushed into the night. My child, I want you to know this. The delay you are seeing is not the failure of a heavenly plan. It is part of that plan. Habakkuk 2:3 says, For the revelation awaits an appointed time, though it lingers. Wait for it. This is not merely a theoretical encouragement. It is the key to understanding how I work. When I say appointed time, I speak of the moment when every factor, people, circumstances, character, and the environment around you reaches full maturity. You measure time with the clock of mankind, but I measure time through the progress of heaven's design. What you perceive as slow, I see as perfectly timed. Remember, there were moments when you asked me to open a door, but when you knocked, It did not move. You thought I was holding you back. In truth, I was keeping you from stepping into something before you were ready. There are opportunities that seem entirely reasonable in your eyes, but if I allowed you to enter them prematurely, they would harm you. There are dreams you believe you already have the capacity to carry, but I know there are deeper layers in you still being shaped. Weaknesses that, if carried into a new environment, could turn into arrows that wound your own soul. Delay is not denial. Delay is protection. Look back on your own journey. How many times did you pray for something, and after many months, or even years, when I finally opened the way, you realized that the timing was far more perfect than anything you could have planned? Reflect on those dreams that once bloomed in your heart, but later seemed dead. I did not kill them. I planted them in the soil. A seed must remain in darkness long enough for its roots to form correctly. If it rises too early, the sun will scorch it. If it stays buried too long, the roots will stiffen. I know the exact moment when the life within you must push upward. My child, I have seen the moments when you felt disappointed as opportunities slipped through your fingers. You thought you had missed them, but I saw that you had been protected. You saw a door closing. I saw a wrong door being shut at the exact right time. You saw a relationship fall apart. I saw a binding that could have pulled you away from the path I intended to lead you on. You saw a dream interrupted. I saw you being redirected so you could align with the calling I placed upon your life. If I were to give you everything at the moment you wanted it, you would only receive the raw, unfinished version of the blessing. But when I give it at the time I have appointed, you receive the complete, mature, and unshakable version that no one can take from your hands. The deepest pain of delay does not lie in the waiting itself. It lies in the feeling of being forgotten. You feel as if everyone else is moving forward. Your friends start families. Others advance in their careers. People with less experience receive opportunities you once longed for. And you ask, why am I the one left behind? But my child, I want you to know that you are not behind. You are being held back for a divine reason. When you belong to me, your pace is not dictated by others. It is dictated by my guidance. You are not running in the race of the world. You are running on the unique journey I have designed for you. There are promises I spoke over you many years ago, promises of restoration, of future things, of calling, of open doors, of repayment. There were moments when these promises grew faint in your heart because of how long the time has been. But I have never spoken a word that I will not fulfill. Every promise has its cycle, sown, tested, matured, fulfilled. You are now in the stages of testing and maturing. This is not an easy phase, but it is necessary. If I allowed you to receive the promise while your faith was still fragile, you would not be able to keep it. If I placed you into your future while your heart was still easily wounded, you would not be able to stand firm in it. My child, divine delay is a sign of a blessing with weight. Small things come easily, but they are also easily lost. Great things take time, because they are built on deep spiritual foundations. I am writing a story far larger than what you see. Every moment you perceived as late is being placed by my hand into its precise position to form a perfect sequence. When you look back later, you will see that if even one piece had arrived a month, a week, or even a day earlier, the entire picture would no longer carry the meaning I intended for you. Do you remember Habakkuk 2:3? For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it may tarry. Wait for it. I never ask you to wait for something that is not real. I ask you to wait because I know that what is coming is greater than anything you could imagine. I want you to understand that your waiting is not wasted. It is refining your endurance. It is sharpening your discernment. It is deepening your dependence. It is strengthening your trust. And above all, it is teaching you to love me for who I am, not only for what I promised you. My child, stand firm. I have never been late. I have also never been silent without purpose. When the promise seems delayed, it is because I am preparing something that exceeds your expectations. Some blessings require not only the right timing but the right season. And when they arrive, they will not be the version you imagined. They will be the version I wrote for you, perfect, complete, and impossible for anyone to steal. My child, there are chapters in your life that still bring a tightness to your chest when you recall them, those moments when you thought you finally held something perfect. But just when you were one step away from touching it, everything suddenly stopped. A relationship you believed was leading toward a beautiful ending suddenly turned another direction. A job opportunity you thought would be your breakthrough ended up going to someone else. A plan you had prayed over, calculated, and prepared thoroughly collapsed as a string of strange events unfolded. Standing in the midst of those blocked paths, all you could feel was pain, disappointment, and at times even bitterness. You did not understand why. You felt robbed of something good. But my child, I want to lead you to see those moments under a different light. Not everything that slipped from your hands was a loss. Some things I deliberately let fall away because that was the only way to keep your soul safe from what would later break you. Psalm 1:2-1-7-8 says, "The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore." When you read these words, you often think of major accidents, obvious dangers, or visible threats. You rarely consider that my protection also covers those doors that seemed incredibly good but would have become harm to your soul if they had opened at that moment. I do not only shield you from clearly bad things, I also shield you from things that appear good but are not the right person, not the right time, or not aligned with the design I created for your life. Think of the way a father or a mother cares for their child. A child sees a sharp, shiny toy and insists on having it. In their eyes, it is wonderful, exciting, and something they must have right now. If it were up to them, they would not hesitate for even a second. But the father and mother see with different eyes. They see the potential injuries, the tears that would follow, the dangers the child is not yet mature enough to understand. When they say no, the child may sulk, may become upset, may even feel unfairly treated. But that no, deep down, is actually a yes to safety, a yes to growth, a yes to the future. My child, I am the same with you. When I block something you are determined to have, it is not because I want you to hurt, but because I want your soul to be spared from wounds you cannot yet see. There are relationships that, when they fall apart, feel as though your heart has split open with them. You blame yourself. You blame circumstances. And sometimes you even wonder, if God loves me, why didn't He keep it together? But I see the days ahead that you cannot see. I know that if that relationship continued, parts of you would be distorted, worn down, or shattered. I see the words that would be spoken, the patterns that would repeat, the wounds that would embed themselves into your identity, and I know that the soul I am shaping for its calling cannot carry those chains with it. I choose to let you cry once, to let you hurt for a season, so that you will not have to live in dependence or lose yourself over the long years ahead. From your perspective, it was loss. From mine, it was deliverance. Likewise, there are jobs, projects, and doors of advancement you believed would change your life if only you could step into them. You prayed, you prepared, you poured your heart into the process. When everything seemed to line up smoothly, you thought it was the sign of an answered prayer. But then a small shift in the system, an unexpected decision by someone else, or an unforeseen circumstance closed that door. In that moment, you felt small, wronged, confused. Lord, why? But my child, there are environments that, if you enter too soon, the pressure in them will crush what I am building inside you. The pace within them will pull you away from intimacy with me. The culture in them will blur the boundaries in your heart. I do not despise those places. I simply know they are not right for you, not at that time. I guard your coming and your going, just as Psalm 121 promises. And this, not letting you in, is one of the ways I guard you. My child, the hardest part of this journey is that you cannot immediately see the other side of the things I prevent. When a door closes, you only see its exterior, the paint, the handle, the sign hanging on it. You do not see the atmosphere behind it, the hidden traps waiting inside, the invisible burdens resting there. When a relationship ends, you only see the good memories, the promises, the possibilities. You cannot see the buried tensions that would surface in a few years, the slow burning wounds that would erupt into flame, the pieces of yourself you would have to sacrifice just to keep everything fine. I see all of it, and because I see, I choose to protect you, even when that protection hurts for a moment. I do not take pleasure in your disappointment, nor do I find joy in your tears. But I love your soul so deeply that I am willing to let you misunderstand me for a season if it means that, in the long run, you will be preserved. I love you enough to stay silent when you are angry, just to keep a door closed that you keep begging me to open. I love you enough to deny the answer you want, knowing that if I granted it, you would pay the price with your peace, your inner freedom, and the purity of the heart I have long guarded. My child, try looking back at some things in your past, those moments when you cried so hard because something ended. Think of the times you thought your heart would never heal. From where you stand now, can you see the invisible cords that, if left uncut back then, would have shaped you into someone very different from who you are today? Can you recognize that, if some of those golden opportunities had worked out, you might have drifted much farther from me? Can you see how those losses actually pushed you into an orbit closer to me, deeper with me, truer to yourself? Those blocked paths, when seen in hindsight under the light, become milestones of my protection. I want you to learn a new way of seeing whenever a door closes. Instead of rushing to conclude that you have been rejected, pause and ask, Lord, is this your way of protecting me whenever something you longed for does not come to pass? Instead of letting bitterness seep in, whisper softly, if this did not come from you, thank you for stopping it. It does not mean you must pretend not to be sad. It means you feel the pain but still choose to believe that I am doing something deeper than the emotion you feel in this moment. My child, I am the one who keeps you from every harm, not only the harm that comes from the outside, but also the kinds of harm that could break your soul from within. I guard your going out and your coming in, your going out of places, people, and opportunities that no longer belong to you, and your coming in to new seasons and new doors that I have prepared for you. From now until forever, I do not grow weary in this task. You do not always recognize it, but my hand has never lifted from your life, and every door that my hand has closed, if you would look at it through the eyes of faith, will eventually reveal one truth: you are being protected, not abandoned. My child, among all the things I use to lead a person's life, there is a mysterious element that human eyes cannot fully perceive. It is my timing. It is not merely days, hours, months, or years as humans measure them, but heavenly moments, those intersections where time, circumstances, and the inner condition of a heart meet in a precision that no human intellect could ever calculate. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven." That season and that time are not vague intervals. They are spiritual windows. I open so that something from heaven may touch the earth, so that a promise from the unseen realm may become reality in your life. For many years, you may pray for something, nurture a dream, or hold tightly to a word in your heart, yet see no sign of movement. It may appear as if everything is standing still, but beneath the surface, I am gradually shifting every layer of circumstance, adjusting timelines, repositioning people, redirecting paths, weaving together stories that seem unrelated. At the same time, I'm also working within you, healing old wounds, stripping away false perceptions, refining your character, stretching your faith, and teaching you discernment. To you, they feel like scattered seasons, long, exhausting, and disconnected. But to me, they are strokes of preparation leading toward one moment, the moment when the time outside you, the environment around you, and the inner landscape of your heart meet at the exact point where the spiritual window opens. My child, imagine that window as a set time I have appointed. It is not that I suddenly change my mind, it is that I wait until every element reaches maturity. There are things that, if they came too early, would crush your shoulders, and if they came too late, your heart might already have hardened from disappointment. Only I know when you are soft enough to be shaped, deep enough to hold blessing, and steady enough to remain unmoved by the first wind that blows. When that time comes, I open what seems like an ordinary intersection. Yet if you step into it, the entire trajectory of your life changes. I may use a chance meeting, an unexpected invitation, a sudden idea that lights up during prayer, a small work opportunity that looks insignificant, or a simple conversation that seems unimportant, but if it is my appointed window, then behind that ordinary appearance lies a divine arrangement. That is why I call you to live in vigilance, not the kind of vigilance rooted in anxiety, where you fear missing something, but a spiritual vigilance where your heart is sensitive to my movements, where you do not cling to what I have asked you to release, where you do not grasp at doors I have already closed, and where you do not shut yourself off from new things simply because you have been disappointed before. One of the greatest dangers of long waiting is becoming so accustomed to nothing happening that when the spiritual window finally opens, you treat it like just another ordinary day. You do not notice the shift in the atmosphere. You do not notice the gentle whisper inviting you forward. You do not notice that the stirring inside you has changed. Vigilance is not frantic, searching for opportunities. Vigilance is stopping when the Spirit touches you and says, "My child, look again. This is not a coincidence. This is me calling you, my child." Every window of divine timing I open carries a personal invitation. I do not force you to enter. I honor your will so deeply that even after preparing everything, I still wait for your yes. That is why some hear and step in their lives, move in a completely new direction. Not because they are better, but because they dared to respond when I called. Others, weary from waiting, afraid of being hurt again, or too attached to their own plans, let the window pass. I do not condemn them, but they lose a season of breakthrough I had prepared for them long before. Later, many look back and say, "If only I had believed. If only I had stepped forward." I do not want you to say, "If only in the future." I want you to be able to say, "I heard, and I stepped in, my child." To recognize a spiritual window, you must learn to listen not only with your ears, but with your soul. Sometimes the sign does not appear in circumstances becoming easier, but in an unusual peace that rises within you even while many things remain uncertain. At times, The outward situation has not changed. Yet the inner pieces of your heart suddenly align. What once frightened you no longer holds you captive. What once made you hesitate now becomes clear. Sometimes I will use many small signs, repeating a single theme through my word, through a sermon, through someone's prayer over several days, like a refrain you cannot ignore. That is when I am saying to you, the window is opening. Do not fall asleep. There are also moments when that spiritual window comes after a season in which you believed you were completely shattered. You emerge from disappointment, from brokenness, closing painful chapters and thinking that simple stability is enough. But I do not merely want to give you stability. I want to lead you into a fuller intention. It is often after seasons of pruning that your soul becomes soft, and that softness makes you more able to hear me than ever before. I use even the things that once made you cry to prepare you for the day I set you into something new. My timing does not waste a single tear. I take the fragments of your past and weave them into a new picture, so that when you step into that window, you do not only receive blessing for yourself, but you bring with you experience, compassion, and wisdom formed through trials. My child, I know you fear missing what I am doing. I know that whenever you hear about times, seasons, and spiritual windows, your heart tightens. What if I don't recognize it? What if I miss it? I want you to rest in this truth. I am the one who calls at the right time. I do not trick you. I do not play hide and seek with your soul. When the moment comes, I will not tap once and then disappear. I know how to repeat, highlight, reveal, and confirm. The issue is not whether you have enough spiritual intelligence. The question is whether your heart is willing to listen. If you keep your heart soft, if you do not stubbornly cling to what I have already asked you to release, if you allow me to shape your steps, you will not miss the window I open for you. Yet, my child, I must also tell you this truth. Some windows do not stay open forever. Certain moments carry a turning point nature, not to frighten you, but to remind you that life does not allow endless delay. There are callings that require your response today, not someday. There are acts of obedience that seem small, making a phone call, writing a letter, signing up for a class, leaving a harmful relationship. Cleaning a corner of your life you have known for years is not right, but these very steps are the key that allows you to cross the threshold. If you continue to hesitate, the door does not close because I change my mind, but because your soul is no longer positioned to step through. I love you enough to keep drawing you back, yet I honor your freedom enough not to drag you through doors you refuse to enter. Today, I am not merely teaching you about my timing as a concept. I am knocking on the door of your heart. I ask you, are you willing to believe that I am at work even when you cannot see anything yet? Are you willing to believe that there will be divine moments I open? And when they come, you must say yes, without letting fear decide for you. Are you willing to let me set the rhythm of your steps instead of running according to the world's haste? Ecclesiastes 3:1 affirms that every purpose under heaven has its season. The purpose I have placed upon your life is no different. It is not lost in chaos. It is held in my hand, guarded, arranged, and prepared for divine moments only I can see in full. My child, stay awake, not in anxiety, but in trust. Pay attention to the subtle movements I am making in your life. Keep your heart tender so I can touch and redirect whenever necessary. And when the spiritual window opens for you, whether through a new opportunity, an unexpected invitation, a challenging shift, or a deep whisper within, step in with courage. For once you cross that threshold, you will realize that every holy delay, every closed door, every long night of waiting was actually leading you to this very moment. And from that moment onward, your life will no longer follow its old trajectory. but will be placed upon the flight path I prepared for you from the beginning. My child, there is a stage in the spiritual journey that anyone who is called must walk through, when I gently yet firmly push you out of old circles so that you may enter a new space. It is not because those people are bad or because they lack worth, but because their season in your life has come to an end. Some relationships were once your refuge, your support, your joy, your companionship. But that season does not last forever. I never build your soul upon prolonged dependence. When I see that you have grown deeper, stronger, steadier, I begin closing circles you believed you could never live without. And often, that closing does not arrive softly. It comes through misunderstandings, distance, silence, diverging paths, or disruptions that leave you unsettled. I know it hurts, for letting go of something that once felt like home to your heart requires many tears. But, my child, a new space will never open to you as long as you cling tightly to the old one. You once asked me, why did they leave? Why did I have to walk away? Why did everything suddenly become so loose and disconnected? You thought you had done something wrong. You blamed yourself, interpreted things on your own, and concluded that you must have been unworthy of someone's presence. But my child, I want you to take another look. Many old circles did not dissolve because of your mistakes. They dissolved because I was shifting you into a new stage of your spiritual life. You no longer fit the old limitations you once lived within. You no longer think the way you used to. You no longer belong to conversations that make your soul heavy. You can no longer blend into places where the light within you is constantly suffocated. You have grown quietly, and that growth naturally created distance. I do not allow this distance to shame you. I use it to guide you forward. There are circles that, if you remain in them too long, will shrink you into a smaller version of yourself. They loved you according to your old version. And when I expanded you, they no longer recognized who you were becoming. They wanted you to return to who you used to be so that you would stay familiar and comfortable to them. If you tried to remain, you would have had to sacrifice the spiritual growth I was pouring into you. That is why I allowed those circles to close, not to leave you isolated, but to lead you to the places where new people are already waiting for you. People I have chosen, called, and prepared to walk with you in the next season. My child, I understand the pain of letting go, the pain of beautiful memories, the pain of familiarity, the pain of unresolved endings, the pain of feeling rejected. But let me say this clearly, you were not rejected, you were released. There are relationships that look soft and harmless on the surface, but the longer they remain, the tighter they wrap around your soul. The expectations of others, the words that make you doubt yourself, the conversations that exhaust your mind, the hidden comparisons, the energies that make you constantly guarded, all of these are subtle bonds you do not recognize until I cut them. And when I cut them, you think you lost something important. In truth, you became free. I also see your shame. You feel left behind. You think others have moved forward while you were pushed outside. You assume that the ending of a relationship is proof that you were not good enough. But my child, the truth is the opposite. I am bringing you into a higher place of honor. Isaiah 6:17 says, "Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion." This is not merely about material restoration. It is about the restoration of spiritual honor. There were things in your past that caused you to be underestimated, misunderstood, and judged through distorted lenses. You bowed your head, stayed silent, and endured for the sake of peace. But I saw all of it, and when I bring you into a new space, I also bring you into a new level of honor, not an honor you must strive for, but an honor I bestow, one that flows from the integrity you maintained even when no one stood with you. My child, the new space is not only a better place, it is a place that aligns with your soul. It is where the ones I send will see you the way I see you. They will not try to shrink your light so they can feel comfortable. They will not perceive your growth as a threat. They will not label your sensitivity as too much. They will not use their wounds to chain you. Those I send to you will be people who lift you, affirm your worth, and confirm what I have already spoken into your spirit long before you said it aloud. They will not make you feel like you need permission to exist. They will encourage you to step fully into your divine design. These allies, the true allies, cannot appear while you are still clinging to old circles. They come only when you are willing to let go. There is a spiritual process that all my servants must pass through: separation, purification, then connection. Many want new connections but refuse to walk through purification. Many cling to old circles because they fear loneliness. But my child, loneliness in a season has never destroyed anyone. Only the wrong relationships can break a soul. I will not leave you in a state of free fall. When I separate you, I always have a place prepared for you. I always prepare the new space before I lead you out of the old one. My child, look back and see every time you lost someone, I later brought someone better for your soul. Every time you released a social opportunity, I led you into a spiritually deeper connection. Every time you stepped away from an old group because the fit was gone, I brought you into a new community where you no longer had to hide yourself. None of these things happened by accident. They came from my hand, the hand that knows where your soul thrives and where your soul withers. Today, I want you to know that when you step out of an old circle, you are not stepping into emptiness. You are stepping into a space I have prepared for you long before you ever arrived. That space is wider, brighter, cleaner, and healthier. It is a space that does not attack your worth, does not dim your light, and does not distort your voice. It is a space where people you have never met will draw near and say, "I see what God has placed inside you." It is a space where your shame is exchanged for honor, where your silence is exchanged for song, and where your lack of connection is exchanged for relationships that heaven itself has sealed. My child, in order to step into that place, you must leave this one. No one can carry two seasons at the same time. No one can remain in the old circle and still enter the new space I have prepared. Letting go may hurt you for a moment, but the freedom it brings will allow your soul to breathe again after years of being compressed. And when you look back at the entire journey, you will see this truth clearly. You have not lost anyone. You have only lost those who could not go with you into the new season. My child, look back at the years you thought were wasted, the long seasons you walked in exhaustion, the cycles of mistakes that made you feel trapped, the dead ends that sent you back to the starting point, the failures that made you bow your head in shame, the years you believed you had been left behind with no chance, no open door, nothing left to hope for. There were days when you looked at your life and saw only empty spaces, unfinished things, goals you never reached, promises not yet fulfilled, dreams lost to inexperience, to wounds, to fear, or simply to the lack of someone to guide you. You told yourself, "If only I had known earlier, if only I had been stronger, if only I had done things differently." All those if-onlys have become weights that suffocate your soul. But, my child, I want you to know this at the very start of the final chapter of your journey. Not a single year of your life has been wasted. Not a single season has been overlooked by me. Not a single step has ever been outside my sight. Joel 2:25 says, "I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten." Pay attention, I do not merely restore the things you lost, I restore the years. This means I am the one who can redeem time itself, the very thing people believe can never be recovered. Yet I can. I have done it before, and I will do it in your life. My child, I know there were years when you lived without truly living, years where you only tried to survive, Years where you gave too much to people who did not deserve it, placed your trust in the wrong hands, and handed your dreams to those who could not value them. There were years when you were wounded. Years when fear imprisoned you. Years when comparison paralyzed you. Years when failure crushed you so deeply that you felt beyond repair. You look back and think it is all ashes, nothing worth keeping, nothing worth using. But my child, it is precisely within those ashes that I am preparing a restoration you cannot yet imagine. You think your mistakes have ruined the plans I had for you. But I want you to understand this. Your mistakes do not discourage me. They simply open a new chapter through which I can display my power. You think the years you wandered off have set you back, but I see that those very years have created a depth inside you that convenience could never teach. You think the endless cycles have only made you tired, but from my perspective, those cycles have forged in you a resilience that you will desperately need when I place you in higher, deeper, and wider territory. My child, I do not only restore what you lost through tragedy or through what others did to you, I also restore what you lost because of your own choices. You often think I only redeem what wasn't your fault. But no, I also redeem the years you spent going the wrong way. Not because you deserve it, but because I am the one who turns failure into foundation, mistakes into wisdom, and pain into strength. I do not overlook those years, I recycle them. What you think is useless, I turn into fertile soil. What you think is failure, I turn into building blocks. What you think is lost time, I turn into the very momentum for the breakthrough you are about to experience. Look again at the scars in your life. Each scar is evidence that you were wounded, but also evidence that you were healed. If I have healed wounds that deep, I can also restore the years those wounds have stolen from you. There were years you did not dare to love because you feared betrayal. Years you did not dare to try because you feared defeat. Years you did not dare to dream because you feared disappointment. You call those years delayed, wasted, too late. But from my side, I call them preparation. What you see as delay, I see as incubation. My child, in the process of restoration, I am not only returning to you things on the outside, I am returning to you yourself, your identity, your worth, your voice, your confidence, your joy, your purity, and the courage you lost along the way. I reclaim the parts of you that were crushed under the opinions of others. I recover the pieces stolen by comparison and pressure. I gather the fragments of your heart that you thought were shattered beyond repair, and I knit them together into something more beautiful than the original version. Let me tell you this, the years you thought were lost were never lost. They have ripened into a kind of fruit that only those who have been struck by winds, battered by storms, and stretched through long winters can bear. Within you now are depths that those who have never endured cannot possess. You carry compassion known only to those who have tasted pain. You walk in a wisdom learned only by those who have wandered and found their way back. You hold a gentle strength known only by those who have risen after falling. I am using those very years to shape the spiritual version of you that I have always desired you to become. Joel 2:25 is not merely a promise, it is a principle. I do not allow any season of your life to be wasted. You no longer need to mourn lost youth, missed opportunities, or fruitless years. I am the one who can compress many years into one season. I can make 1 year repay 10. I can move you into a pace that does not depend on your strength, but on my divine opening of the way. When I restore, you will see that my restoration is not simply giving back what was lost, but returning it multiplied, for I never restore according to human proportions. I restore according to the proportions of heaven. My child, you have walked through fire without being burned. You have passed through waters without being swept away. You have lived through what seemed like your darkest years, and yet you are still here, still believing, still clinging to my promises, still turning your heart toward the light. That alone is evidence that your time was not wasted, you were being prepared. And now, as you enter the latter stretch of this journey, I want you to look toward the future, not through the lens of the years that have passed, but through the lens of what I am about to do. Stand firm, my child. I am stepping into places you cannot perceive with natural eyes. I am gathering the years that were devoured, rebuilding them, and turning them into a season of abundance. What you thought was ashes, I am using as soil for a new harvest. What you thought was too late, I am turning into perfect timing. And what you thought was lost, I am bringing back fuller, deeper, and far more beautiful. My child, throughout the years you have walked, countless labels have been placed upon your life, some imposed by others, some imprinted by circumstances, some whispered by your own wounded thoughts. The heavy words of your past, the sting of failure, the moments of being overlooked, the seasons of rejection, the judging eyes, all these laid before you narratives that you assumed were the truth about who you are. You once heard people say you were not good enough, and eventually you believed them. You once heard someone call you useless, and you stored those words inside you like a verdict. You were treated as if you belonged on the margins, and you came to believe that was your rightful place. You felt small standing before certain people, and you assumed you were meant to stay at the back. All these labels: failure, worthless, unworthy, too late, not enough, gathered like dust upon your soul, making you forget something profoundly important. You are not a slave to anyone or anything. You are, my child. 1 John 3:1 says, "See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God." This is not just a beautiful statement, it is the foundational truth upon which your entire identity must be built. You are a child, not a stranger, not a slave, not an outsider standing at the door. You have a place, a name, an inheritance, a covering that belongs to you. Yet, my child, in many seasons, you have lived as though you were a slave, someone begging for permission to exist, someone craving scraps of affection from others, someone trying to prove your worth through accomplishments, perfection, or pleasing the expectations of people. My child, the time has come for me to remove every counterfeit label and restore to you the true identity I gave you from the beginning. You are loved with a love that does not depend on performance. You are accepted with an acceptance that does not fluctuate with results or perfection. You are called by name, not by the labels handed to you by people. When I call your name, I do not speak through your fears, your failures, or your shortcomings. I call you according to what I placed within you when you were still in your mother's womb, and no one has the authority to rewrite that truth. My child, the labels the world placed on you reveal only their opinions, not your value. Many people saw you through the lens of their own unhealed wounds, their hidden envy, or their lack of understanding, and you allowed their words to sink deeper than they ever should have gone. You let passing comments become defining voices. You let people who did not understand your calling define your identity. That was unfair to your soul. And even more, it was misaligned with the spiritual truth I established over you. Look at yourself through my eyes. You are not the product of failure. You are the evidence of redemption. You are not the result of your mistakes. You are the testimony of transformation. You are not the remnant of wasted years. You are soil remade, carrying the potential to bear fruit no one saw coming. When I look at you, I do not see labels. I see purpose. I see the light I placed within you. I see the calling heaven has written over your life. I see the worth that even you sometimes fail to recognize. My child, I want you to step out of the lifestyle of begging for affection, begging for validation, begging to be seen as enough, begging to be accepted, begging to be loved. You do not have to live like that anymore. A child who knows they belong to the king does not walk into the palace with their head lowered. They walk in with a quiet peace, not arrogance, but understanding I belong here. This is my home. My Father sits on the throne. When you know you are a child, no force can make you feel lesser. When you know your true identity, the voices of others can no longer sway you. When you know you are loved unconditionally, you stop seeking unhealthy affection in the wrong relationships. I want your mind to be renewed. I want your inner being to be restored. You lived for years in the mindset of someone who only hoped not to be hurt again. You shrank back. You made yourself small so you would not cause inconvenience. You stayed silent so you wouldn't draw attention. You turned down opportunities because you believed you were not good enough. You stepped backward. Even when I had called you forward, you sat in the back. Even when I had prepared a seat for you in the front. These were the effects of living under labels you were never meant to carry. But today, I want you to step out, not by your own strength, but by the truth. That truth is the only thing that can break the mindset of slavery. That truth is the only thing that can shatter the chains of insecurity, shame, guilt, and smallness that the world placed on you. That truth is this: you are loved so deeply that I call you my child. Not a slave, not a servant, not an outsider at the door. You belong to me, my child. When you reclaim your identity as my child, something extraordinary happens. Every place where you once bowed your head suddenly becomes too small to contain you. The circles that used to intimidate you can no longer control your emotions. The words that once wounded you lose their power. The people who once belittled you are no longer the standard by which you define yourself. When you live as a child, not as a slave, your back straightens not out of pride, but out of freedom. Your eyes shine not out of arrogance, but out of the awareness that you no longer need permission to exist. Your voice steadies not to challenge others, but because you have found your true sound again. And here is what I want you to hold firmly when you receive your identity as my child. You do not simply change the way you see yourself, you also change the way heaven interacts with you. Not because I love you more, I have always loved you fully, but because when you live in your true identity, you stand in the position where you can receive what I have prepared. Inheritance is not given to slaves. Inheritance is given to children. Honor is not given to outsiders. Honor is for those who carry the king's lineage. Anointing, power, guidance, courage, these are given to you when you take your rightful place. My child, step into this part of your journey with a new steadiness. Leave behind every label the world has placed on you. Bow to me, not to them. Open your heart and let me erase every sentence others have spoken over you. Words that wounded, words that shamed, words that made you question your worth. Let me speak again to you. Every day, every hour, every moment you are my child. I call you by name. You belong to me. You are no longer a slave. And as you walk in that truth, you will see something beautiful unfold. Old labels will fall off on their own. Doors that once closed because you lacked confidence will open. Toxic relationships will lose their grip on you. You will enter the new season, not with the posture of a beggar, but with the stride of an heir. For you are a child of God, and that changes everything. My child, for a very long time, you have been walking under an invisible weight, a pressure no one is required to carry. Yet almost everyone ends up bearing the burden of needing human approval. There were seasons when even your breathing felt dictated by the eyes of others, when every choice was pulled back by the fear of being misunderstood, when every step slowed because you kept asking yourself, "What will they think of me?" You have lived in a mental landscape filled with questions that were never yours to carry. Am I good enough? Will people acknowledge me? Will I disappoint anyone? Will anyone see my worth? Over time, those questions didn't just exhaust your mind, they distorted the identity I planted in your soul. But my child, today, I want you to step into another kind of release, a deep unbinding that not everyone is willing to receive, freedom from the need to please people. Galatians 1:10 says, "If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ." This is not an invitation to arrogance or insensitivity. It is a call to purity, a life whose center is no longer set on the gaze of people, but on my gaze. My child, let me speak plainly. People are not your measure. Their praise does not make you more valuable, and their criticism does not make you less. But for many years, you forgot this. You let someone's compliment make you overly joyful. You let one harsh comment ruin your whole day. You let a baseless rumor unsettle your heart. You let a hasty judgment from someone else make you question yourself. In those moments, your soul was pulled back and forth like a boat without an anchor, surrendered to every wave of opinion. My child, nothing is more exhausting than living to please people. People change faster than the wind. Today they praise. Tomorrow they criticize. Today they celebrate you. Tomorrow they turn their backs. Today they cheer. Tomorrow they fall silent. People look at you through the narrow lens of their own immaturity, their wounds, and their expectations of you. And if you live for their approval, your life will become a construction site where others constantly build up and tear down your value. You will become someone who must ask permission to exist, who must behave just right, who must speak to avoid trouble, who must act to avoid misunderstanding. That is not freedom, and that is not the identity of a child. My child, look at your life through another lens. I did not create you to be a mirror reflecting the opinions of the crowd, but a mirror reflecting me. You were not created to be liked, but to be chosen. Not everyone will like you, and that is completely normal. Some may cherish you, but others will not be able to handle the light within you. Some will honor what is sacred about you, while others will not understand what I placed inside you. You must learn to live with this truth. No one has theology deep enough to fully understand the story I am writing over your life. Therefore, my child, it is time for you to shift your focus. From now on, instead of asking, "What do people think of me?" ask, "What does God say about me?" The moment you move from the first question to the second, your entire inner life will begin to shift. Because my answer does not change with someone else's emotions. I do not love you more or less depending on your success or failure. I do not evaluate you by society's flawed standards. I look at you through the work of redemption, through the design I placed on your life, through the potential heaven sees in you. My child, when you know who you are in me, every human opinion, good or bad, loses its power. Praise will not make you proud. Criticism will not make you despair. You will learn to receive correction in peace and to ignore attacks in silence. You will remain soft without being crushed, strong without becoming hardened. You will no longer move according to the emotions of others, but according to my leading. Pause for a moment and look back over your life. How many times have you reshaped yourself just to please someone? How many times have you dimmed your own light out of fear someone would envy it? How many times have you silenced your voice because you feared conflict? How many times have you lived as a faint version of yourself just to avoid criticism, my child? My heart aches when I see you contort yourself into the mold people set for you. You were not created to please them. You were created to glorify me, and that sometimes requires you to be misunderstood, criticized, or misjudged, but I see it. I know it. I acknowledge it. My child, there is something that happens when you live for the approval of people. You lose the sound of my voice. It is not because I stop speaking, but because your mind becomes too crowded with the opinions of others. Every word they say becomes a cloud that obscures my light. Every compliment they give becomes a rope that ties you down. Every criticism they utter becomes an arrow that pierces you. As long as your eyes are fixed on them, you will never hear the truth that I speak over you. And it is that truth, not someone's impression of you, that becomes the foundation upon which you stand firm. My child, I am inviting you into a new realm of freedom. It is a place where you live by revelation, not by public opinion. You act according to my voice, not out of a need to be affirmed. You dare to do what is right, even when no one applauds it. You dare to go against the current, even when it isolates you. You dare to stand firm, even when the world does not understand you. You dare to live with truth, even when it is not welcomed. When you begin to live this way, you will feel light. Light because you no longer have to perform. Light because you no longer have to wear a mask. Light because you no longer have to prove anything. Light because you no longer have to monitor every reaction around you. Light because you know that the only heart you are called to please is mine. In that freedom, you will discover something astonishing. You will become stronger, brighter, deeper, and more authentic. And when you stand firm in this truth, you will look back and see that all the years you spent trying to please people never gave you anything but exhaustion. But even a single moment lived as a servant of Christ, not seeking human approval, but seeking my delight, begins to rewrite the entire spiritual map of your life. My child, I am calling you to step into that land, a land where your soul is no longer shaped by the eyes, words, or judgments of anyone, a land where you know with certainty that you belong to me, that you are accepted, loved, and treasured by me, a land where you can live faithfully according to what I have placed within you, without needing to adjust yourself to please anyone but me, a land where my voice becomes your compass, not the noise of the crowd. And now, my child, pray this, Lord. In the seasons when my soul hears nothing but silence, when my prayers seem to rise into the heavens without an answer, open my eyes to see that your silence is not your absence. Help me recognize that in the moments that feel dark and empty, you are working more deeply, preparing something greater, gathering grace to reveal at the appointed time. Heal the anxiety within me, that I may no longer assume I am forgotten, pushed aside, or overlooked. Teach my soul to rest in the truth that silence is not rejection but part of the holy process in which you shape my faith and open my ears to hear your gentle whisper. Lord, grant me peace in the darkness so I may know that the spiritual dawn is drawing nearer than I realize. Lord, you are the one who sees what no one else sees. Remember the quiet, righteous choices I have made in hidden places, the times I chose forgiveness over retaliation, silence over accusation, integrity over compromise. Remind me that heaven never forgets the silent oil I have poured out in the secret room. Help me continue walking in faithfulness, even when no one acknowledges it, even when I feel disadvantaged. Teach me to trust that my hidden faithfulness is being written into eternity's story, and that you are never unjust to forget the labor of my heart. Lord, soften my spirit so I will always choose the path of light, even when no one is watching. Lord, open my eyes to see that I am not ordinary, not a product of coincidence, not someone who has stumbled into a random and directionless life. You have called me, set me apart, and that mark has followed me through every season I have lived. Help me understand that the way I do not fit into the patterns of this world is not a flaw but evidence that I belong to a higher calling. Teach me to live in the truth that I am part of a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a bearer of light in the midst of darkness. Lord, help me no longer doubt the identity you have placed within me, but walk with the sacred confidence that I belong wholly to you. When the calling rises and the battle intensifies, remind me that I do not fight against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces that seek to keep me from stepping into your will. Strengthen my soul when the attacks come relentlessly: doubt, fear, isolation, exhaustion, and the accusations that swirl in my mind. Let me know that the fierce winds coming against me are not a sign of weakness, but a sign that I am drawing near to the purpose of my life. Hold me firm in grace. Empower me by your strength, and keep me from giving up under any assault of darkness. Cover me with your spiritual protection, and teach me to fight with truth and faith. Lord, when I am so weary that I have no words left to pray, when all I can do is sigh and whisper, God, I am weak. Let me experience the promise that your grace is sufficient for me, and that your power is made perfect in my weakness. Heal the exhaustion within me, and teach me that I was never meant to hold everything together alone or pretend to be strong. Help me find freedom in surrendering into your hands, so that my very inability becomes the place where your grace flows most powerfully. Teach me to cry before you, to yield to you, and to know that you never reject a sincere cry of the heart. Lord, in the days when I see doors close, opportunities slip away, and dreams delayed, remind me that your timing is never late. Break every feeling of disappointment and every thought that I have been forgotten. Help me see delay as preparation, see postponement as protection, and see silence as a season where seeds are being nurtured. Teach me to wait patiently for the appointed time you have set for what I am praying for. Guard my heart from discouragement, and show me that behind every delay is a plan greater and better than I imagined. Lord, open my eyes to perceive your wisdom in every place where something has been stopped. When I cry over an opportunity lost, when I ache over a relationship that is closed, when something I thought was perfect suddenly ends, remind me that you are guarding my soul from things I cannot yet see. Free me from bitterness, and help me believe that every closed door carries a deep spiritual purpose. Let me understand that your no is sometimes the strongest yes, a yes to safety, to maturity, and to the future you have chosen for me. Lord, help me release the relationships, circles, and spaces whose season in my life has ended. Heal the pain of letting go, and free me from the shame that once clung to me like a shadow. Open my heart to receive the truth that you are leading me into a new space, wider, brighter, healthier, and more aligned with my soul. Give me the courage to leave old bondages behind and step into the connections you have chosen and sent for me. Let me see that the losses of one season are the doorway into restoration in the next. Lord, today I surrender to you and ask that you deliver me from every dependence on the praise or criticism of people. Remove the need to be validated, applauded, or approved. Bring me back to the one true center, not what do people think of me, but what does God say about me? Let me hear your voice above every noise around me. Teach me to live, not to please people, but to do what pleases Christ. Grant me true freedom, freedom from the fear of being misunderstood, freedom from the prison of others' expectations, and freedom from the pressure to prove my worth. Plant my feet firmly upon the foundation of my identity as your child, so that I may live strong, pure, and whole in the truth you have revealed. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we can build a strong and growing community of faith.